Candy? I think you're muted.
You're muted, Candy.
Still muted.
Bottom left-hand corner.
Okay. 1 minute.
Find it. Brad's on the way to
I
help.
think she's got it. Nope, now it's on. She's muted again.
Okay, I'm on. I have taken
Very
roll.
good. All right, very good. First step is to approve the agenda.
This is Jason Winbolt. I move to approve the agenda.
Sharon Mitchell, second.
Moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Candy, please collect the vote.
We'll start with Mrs. Sealing. Mrs. Sealing,
Yes.
did we get Mr. Boyle on?
Yes.
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
okay, Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Winbolt,
Yes.
Mr. Updike,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
and just confirming that Mr. Anderson is not on. Approval of the agenda complete.
Very good. Thank you. First item is please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice
for all. All right, very good. Thank you. Moving right along to recognitions, Dr. Burke.
Yeah, this is the time of the year. Normally we have the Spring Hill High School Volunteer Club come in. Obviously, because of social distancing, we can't really do that. But I did see that Carrie Rodden is on here. Carrie, I don't know if Emily Rediker is here as well.
She is.
So we will turn it over to you. There she is. Hi, Emily.
Hi.
So Carrie, we'll turn this over to you.
Okay, great. Well, I am Carrie Rodden, and I'm one of the sponsors of the volunteer program. I've been a sponsor for 13 years. And Emily Rediker is the other sponsor, and this is her first year. And first of all, Emily and I just wanted to thank the Board of Education, Dr. Burke, Mr. Williams, and our administration for being so supportive of the volunteer program these past years. Without it, it would not be a successful program. Most of you know about the volunteer program, but I'm going to give you a really short rundown of the class and kind of what we do. The class began in 1997. Any student can be a part of the club. To be a part of the class, however, students have to attend 6 projects their sophomore year and be somewhat involved their freshman year. And once in the class, the students are peer helpers. We do all sorts of different things. We go to the elementary school. 3 days a week, we have adopted grandparents in the community, and we kind of help out where needed in the classroom and outside the classrooms, and help the teachers and such. One major component of the class is the semester projects. And with these semester projects, we have about 12 each year. And the students that are in the class are in charge of everything. They recruit, they plan, they get a hold of the organization, they figure out what we're doing while we're at the projects. Some of the, like I said, we do 12. And some of the highlighted projects that we do is we serve an entire Thanksgiving dinner to a domestic violence shelter. We go to a Salvation Army family homeless shelter twice a year and have ice cream parties and ice cream socials, play with the kids. And then we go to a place called Kansas City Community Kitchen, and we help serve some of the more poverty stricken in the area and just help out. And those are just a few of the projects that we do. One thing that we would like to highlight this year is we have had more students volunteer this year than we have in the past 3 or 4 years. It's been very competitive. We only can take a certain amount sometimes, so the students race to my door, grab the brochure and the permission forms. Even though this has been kind of a strange year, the students have still continued to volunteer even outside of the classroom setting. And that's been really, really neat to watch them do different things throughout the community.
Yes, they've wrote letters to their adopted grandparents. They've done yard work for elderly residents in the community, picked up trash, and even picked up groceries and did some yard work for one of our 3 adopted grandparents. And, you know, the list kind of goes on, and it just shows how strong of a commitment the students really have to volunteering. It's more than a class to them. And Carrie and I are so proud of them. And we just wanted to show you a short video that highlights their hard work and projects both before and after the quarantine.
The streets and volunteering has been a passion for myself since at a very young age. I have helped at my church, through Children's Mercy, and at Old Settlers. Also, of course, through school in the Volunteer Club and a National Honor Society. I have had the greatest pleasure of being part of all of these volunteering opportunities. However, the most life-changing part about volunteering for me is the day I started going to projects at the high school. I still remember the first project I went to, which was Casey Community Kitchen. It helped me open my eyes to how poor people were treated on the streets and what their life was like. It got me out of my comfort zone to go talk to people I never thought would be nice to me. When I was younger, people at school treated me harshly and I felt so insecure in myself. Volunteering has helped me get out of my box and find this new joy inside of me. I believe God blessed me with this gift of having the joy of loving and helping others. Thank you, Rod and Redeker, for this class. I appreciate all that you do.
Giving is caring to those who cannot afford in a changing world. For those that give all create warmth in who receives. No one is alone. We who volunteer give not only things but love. Love is more than time. Love is dialogue. Love is strong relationships. Love's universal. Giving to all, sunshine, rain, and even snow. We are volunteers.
We need love, love.
Y'all paid 232. That's how many lives y'all have touched. If it weren't for you guys here, somebody would not been able to get a smile, a hot plate fast. They would have to stand in line, even though they don't mind standing in line, but they love seeing the community get involved. Keep on giving back, because we have to give back as much as we can. As young, as old, but you have to show your brothers and sisters and the next generation coming back. So we showed y'all how to give back, now you have to show your brothers and sisters how to give back, right? Yes, all right. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for letting us present tonight. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Great video. Thanks for bringing that in.
Yeah, that's an incredible program, and we've been doing this for quite a few years. And thank you for the Ms. Rodden and Ms. Rediker for the amount of time and energy that you spend as well. So phenomenal program. Hopefully we can do it for many, many, many years. All right. I'm sorry to do this to you, but next up, Beth Cooper. That'd be hard to follow.
Well, I was thinking the same thing, Dr. Burke. I thought, rats, I'm first tonight, but I'll do the best I can. I wanted to share a little bit of feedback from parents. I know sometimes when you are on a board of education or work in administration, sometimes you feel a little bit like you work in the complaints department of the department store. But we at the building level have been hearing a lot of great things from parents. So I'm just going to share a couple emails with you tonight. And really, this is in recognition of our teachers that have been working so hard. This first one is from a parent who has 3 children in elementary school. She wrote, I wanted to send a huge thank you to you, the teachers, Dr. Burke, basically the entire district personnel for the communication, the support, the resources, and basically for adapting to an entirely different way to do your jobs. in what seems like about 60 seconds. I have friends in different parts of the country with whom I have shared USD230's plan for helping and supporting families, and they are amazed at what resources the district has been able to put together in such a brief time. A Herculean effort and a labor of love, to be sure. Each one of my teachers' kiddos has been in direct contact with them, and beyond academics have wanted to be sure they're doing the best they can emotionally. Everyone's outreach is so greatly appreciated. We appreciate everyone's efforts at this incredible time. I obviously kept that in my saved file because it's nice when we've been trying so hard to do something different to hear those thoughts. Just one more quick one I wanted to share. This one is from a mom of 2 children at school, and she wrote, "So much careful thought, planning, and love put into these plans. Thank you to all the amazing, hardworking teachers at Wolf Creek." And then just last, a little side note, just last Friday, I was in an IEP transition meeting, and at the end, just kind of out of the blue, the dad said, "Hey, will you be sure, Mrs. Cooper, to thank all the people who are out there passing out those choice boards every day? I know that's probably a long shift to be standing there passing them out, but I really appreciate it." So I just thought I'd take tonight to share some of that with you. It sure uplifted me and wanted to do a little bit of that for you too.
All right. Timber Sage, Jason Townsend.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and echo Beth Cooper here. I think a lot of times 20% of our people get 80% of our. I'm going to recognize our paraprofessionals in our district. Specifically, a couple working at Timber Sage this week out and about in the building. I fully expected to walk up and say, "How's your day going?" and hearing not so great things. But they both looked at me and they said, "We are so happy to be here. We are so happy to be working. Whatever you guys need, whatever needs to be done, we'll do." And it got off guard a little bit. And I think it's important to understand that, just like these paraprofessionals, there are positive people all over our district. Sometimes, like Beth said, we don't always hear about them. We feel like the complaint department of the district. But when you walk in and you have a positive attitude, it goes a long way. So I want to recognize the paraprofessionals that are still showing up every single day to do stuff for our schools.
All right. Next up, Prairie Creek, Jody Cole.
Good evening. I'm excited to share results from the virtual Greater Kansas City Science and Engineering Fair. We have 27 science fair winners. 18 students received silver awards in chemistry and chemical energy. Those students are Elizabeth Olson, Natalie Rice, Caitlin Weinbrenner, Elsie Casanova, Mackenzie Rifle, Tinley Merriman, Quinn Hubbard, McKenna Swanson, Reese Martin, Madison Morris, Alexis Hines, Ben McConaughey, David Link, Trent Bechtel, Dylan Seidler, Perry Wagner, Madeline Weaver, and Caitlin Shipley. 8 students received gold awards in engineering, mechanics, and chemistry. Those students are Chloe Duran, Lola Barlow, Jaslyn Zuniga, Brooke Protera, Keegan Folk, Clara Pinkham, Hudson Renshaw, and Avery Gallagher. We have 1 student, Colton Northrup, who was a first place division winner in engineering. We are extremely proud of all our 5th grade students. Thank you.
Spring Hill Elementary School, Tammy Endicott.
Good evening. I wanted to recognize, also, we had 2 girls at the elementary school. We didn't have that many overall that persevered and got everything done for the virtual Kansas City fair, but we did have 2 girls that won 3rd place in chemistry, and that was Kylie Tillery and Haley Clark. So I wanted to recognize them tonight.
Woodland Spring Middle School, Rod Sprague.
Hi, one of the things I want to recognize, or one of the people I want to recognize, is our yearbook sponsor, Jessica Gazzano. With the yearbook this year, she also added a few more features, which has been really kind of nice, especially during the stay-at-home orders, where there is a QR code in the yearbook which will link to a video, and it is pictures that kids have sent, videos from teachers sending messages to the kids. It's going to be a really nice function to that, and she's done a really great job with that. The other thing that Ms. Gazzano has done is she is working on a stallion showcase many of our kids didn't get to perform at the end of the school year, either in music or art for the art show, things like that. And so she's putting together a Stallion Showcase, which will be on a Google site, to highlight some of our students and their work and their performances. So we're really excited about that. Also, just want to highlight Miss Sly for her work with 8th grade. She has helped us find a way to recognize our 8th graders in this time where we normally have assemblies and all kinds of stuff. We are actually, we have banners that are being created that send a really positive message to our kids as the year winds down. So we're really excited about that as well.
Spring Hill Middle School, Trevor Gertson.
Hey, I would like to recognize tonight Aaron Todd. No, Aaron's not on the board docs. He's resigning from Spring Hill Schools and moving on. But Aaron has been a phenomenal administrator and spent over 20 years of his career in Spring Hill. And it's been a joy and an honor to work with him and learn from him the last 3 years. And, I think he's done a tremendous amount of work for our staff and for this community, and he's definitely going to be missed. And I think he's a great man and a great pillar of the community. I'm definitely going to miss the man, but just want to recognize him publicly tonight.
Spring Hill High School, Mark Williams.
All right, good evening. This evening, I'd like to recognize sophomore Elise Belcher. Our students have had a lot of stuff taken away from them towards the end of the year, but she got notified a couple of weeks ago that she qualified for the National Speech and Debate Competition. So she'll be attending the virtual competition this summer. So shout out goes to Elise.
And is there any other? I know Cassie Barton's on here. Cassie, did you want to talk to him about graduation?
Sure. We have solidified a date for the Insight. In-person graduation is still the plan. We are going for Saturday, July 18th at 10 a.m. Obviously, guidelines at that time or regulations that may be in place will kind of determine if it's in or outdoors, but it will be at Spring Hill High School. And 10 a.m. should have us covered in or outside. Won't have us roasting if we have to go outside at our typical 2 o'clock time. So 10 a.m. on July 18th is the plan for Insight. Our students are very excited. We had tears of joy when we put that news out. So I think it's always a very emotional ceremony. I think it'll be even a little bit more so this year because they really had the fear that we would just do it virtually and kind of call it completed. So the other thing I did want to recognize 2 staff members of mine, Jo Marie Bullock and Ashley Fryer, are my National Honor Society sponsors for Insight. We have a small chapter, and they got together and put together a virtual induction ceremony on Friday night. It was wonderful. It went so smoothly. The kids were fantastic. They logged on at noon and did a practice run because none of us were real sure how it would go, but it was really neat to see. And it was kind of fun to see the families get involved and do the actual, we'd sent the pins ahead of time so that they could literally be pinned that evening. It just wasn't going to be by us. So we inducted 8 new members to our Insight chapter of NHS as well. Thank you.
Any other directors? Anybody else have anything else? All right, Mr. Updike, we'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Burke. Moving on to business with individuals.
No forms were received.
Okay. Consent agenda consists of approval of the consent agenda, approval of the minutes of our last stated meeting, personnel, approve the sick leave buyback, the milk bid, and the natural gas contract. This is the consent agenda. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Updike, just to throw a couple of things, the milk bid is something that we do on a 3-year basis. And so we look to renew for that. And I believe last year the board gave us permission to go ahead and move the natural gas contract to the consent agenda. But Doug can answer any questions if you have about either one of those.
This is Brent Hoffman. I have a quick question on the gas bid. What buildings does that apply to?
It would apply to everybody that's got gas, and I think there's at least a little bit of gas going to all buildings. So, yeah, it'd be district wide.
I think we do a little cooking with gas pretty much in all the buildings.
Yep.
Okay, thanks. I wondered if some were all electric. Wasn't sure.
Also, see that Dr. Brock is retiring. I want to thank her for her service. I've known her for a long time, and her husband, actually. I taught with her husband in Paola. So I want to thank her for her many, many years of service with Spring Hill, and wish her the best and in her future endeavors with both her son. I know her son as well. I taught with him at Washington High School. He helped set up our video department. So it's been a long time. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
We still have one more recognition back in June. So we were going to embarrass her a little bit in June. So.
Second. Any other questions about the consent agenda?
Ooh, thank you. Nice.
Mr. President, this is Jason Winbolt. I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
This is Brent Hoffman. I second the motion.
Thank you. It's moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any final opportunity for final questions or comments? Candy, please collect the vote.
We'll start the voting with Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Winbolt,
Yes.
Mr. Updike,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Sealing,
Yes.
approved.
Very good. Thank you. Moving on to action items. The first action item we have is the school handbook updates. Dr. Burke.
Yeah, we covered this at the last board meeting. We have principals and directors here if you have any questions.
I was thinking about in the high school handbook, kind of raising a question about the valedictorian deal, but I'm thinking that it might be something that would be better at the end of our meeting, a list for future meetings, something that we could maybe have a discussion about with some of the new courses that they've had and grading. And I'd like to hear some more about that, but I don't think it's necessarily fair to do it right now with the handbook thing. I think it's okay to approve the handbooks.
Okay, any other questions? This is an action item.
Mr. President, this is Jason Winbolt. Move that we approve the school handbook updates.
Sharon Mitchell, second.
Thank you. It's moved and seconded to approve this school handbook updates as presented. Final opportunity for questions or comments. Candy, please collect the vote.
We'll begin the vote with Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Winbolt,
Yes.
Mr. Updike,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Sealing,
Yes.
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
approved.
Very good. Thank you. Moving on to Apple equipment purchases. Dr. Burke.
Yeah, if you remember, I believe about 6 years ago, the board made the decision to start providing computers and to our students 6 through 12. And through the years, we've added iPads to that. As time goes, we have to buy more computers because sometimes they get old and sometimes we have more people move into the district. I'm going to turn this over to Phil. Phil, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I'll be happy to answer any questions. This is a standard Apple purchase. It's in the same price range that we normally pay. Apple only sells direct, so we can't get any competitive bids.
Any questions on the Apple equipment purchase bid?
These are just add-on computers, or what point do we think we need to redo and restart everything or rebuy everything?
Yeah, so this is the first year on our second phase of all of those. We replaced all of them about this time last year. This is just to address the growth between the outgoing 12th graders and incoming 6th graders. And then the iPads, a significant portion of that 270 is to address ones that are 5+ years old and will no longer support the latest operating system.
Thank you.
Is this a time sensitive kind of thing that, I mean, I don't think it's through, but I don't remember. Did we do a discussion item on it last time?
We didn't, primarily because it's not a new thing. It's just a continuation of what we're doing as a district. But if the board would feel more comfortable waiting, we currently have inventory secured for this order. I hope it would still be there. It's a small enough order that it would still be available in June. But with only one meeting in May, it just makes it a little harder for us.
I don't really have a problem with it. I just know we've kind of tried to do a general practice of a discussion item before an action item.
We're going to have to buy computers every year. Until we quit growing, we're going to have to buy them every year. So we can bring it back as a discussion item, but it's one of those things that until we do a completely revamp, and I think that might have been what Mr. Anderson was talking about, it's going to cost us well over $1 million when we get to that point. We can bring it as a discussion, but every year until we quit growing, we're going to have to buy more computers.
Yeah, I would tend to think of this as like the milk bid, the natural gas contract, things that we do annually. So I think the discussion during the action item is probably a proper way of doing it.
Where are the majority of the iPads going?
Kindergarten through kindergarten through 1st grade. And then some of them are to replace some staff ones that have just had theirs long enough that they're in that original batch.
Okay, thanks.
And so if they're going to the elementary, is that on cart still, I guess, or what are we doing?
Yeah, so kindergarten through 5th grade, we do have a device for every student in the classrooms. So they don't go home with them, but they do stay in the classrooms and or are used around the building for each student so that the teacher doesn't have to try to play the reserve a cart game and whoever gets there first gets the cart and everybody else complains. So.
One of the things that we're looking at is if we have to close again next year, we're looking at maybe possibly trying to get devices in the elementary students' hands as well. And so this is an alternative to help us do that as
well. I would just want to have a full discussion on that before because we kind of never decided we wanted to do one-to-one with the elementary, and I think that needs to be a separate discussion.
When we actually did the large purchase, Nels, and I'll have to go back and find the date, we did talk about that we were putting the carts in the classrooms in quote to make them available, but it wasn't intended to have all the instruction done electronically. It was just for more flexibility for the classroom.
Sure.
This is Eric. Mr. President, I move the board approve the purchase from Apple for 113-inch MacBook Air computers and 270 iPads with cases.
Nels Anderson, second.
Seconded to Approve the Apple equipment purchases as noted. Opportunity for final comment and input. Candy, please collect the vote.
We'll begin the vote with Mr. Winbolt,
Yes.
Mr. Updike,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Sealing,
Yes.
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
approved.
Okay,
Thank
very
you.
good. Moving on to the utility easement for Evergy Metro. Dr. Burke.
Yeah, I'm going to have Phil pop up the map. This is for that area out by the high school that's going to be next to the Educational Support Center and the Spring Hill Administrative Center. I believe it's, Phil, is it 10 foot wide?
This is Tim. It's 10 foot wide, 5 foot on each side of the pipe, for lack of a better word. They again tried to stick in the word pole, and we asked them to take it out because we didn't want them to have a chance later on to put a pole in it. So we one caveat of this, you might remember voting on a easement for them for the Education Support Center. Kansas City Power and Light, which is now Evergy, during their conversion and some other stuff, had some people changing jobs. So the person that had that piece of paper changed jobs. They can't find it. So they combined both of them into this so that we can get the thing finally put to bed. And so now we're voting on both of them again. It's the same easement for the Education Support Center, but then we're adding the District Administrative Center on it. So, Greg Goheen is, sorry, go ahead.
This is just one easement, right? We don't have a 10-foot easement here and another 10-foot easement somewhere else in the vicinity.
I mean, we've got, it's one easement in some areas, but obviously where it runs into the building from the sectionalizer and stuff like that, there's a different easement there. So most of it follows the same path.
I guess what he's saying, and Doug, I don't want to speak for you, but we did a 10-foot easement up by the Educational Support Center. Is this just the same easement extending south?
Mostly, yes. There is a little bit of a different one from the sectionalizer out. So
It follows the same path. It's just that the one goes farther north. So yes,
Right.
is the answer to the question.
And
so we're not giving up 20-foot easement somehow.
No,
right? We're just giving up 10-foot of easement, and
yeah,
they'll run whatever they need in that 10-foot easement, except for this sectionalizer that goes into the new building.
Yeah, and it's a little bit longer easement coming back down to the board office because the transformer sets up close to the Education Support Center. There's two reasons for that. Where they wanted to put it would have been behind the District Administrative Center, and we would have had to have provided a road all the way around so that they can maintain it. By pulling it up and having it up by the Education Support Center, we can use the same access from the Education Support Center so they can get to the transformer. We have a little bit more of the leads going into the building from the transformer, but and we're giving a little bit more because it could have came straight off the sectionalizer, but down the road, if we ever add on to the building, we would have had to tear out what road we'd put in, plus build an additional road back behind. So to kind of future-proof it, we kept it up close to the Education Support Center's transformer.
It's all basically backyard space anyway. So.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is it any other questions on the easement for Evergy for the Education Support Center and the District Administrative Center?
Mr. President, this is Sharon Mitchell. I move that we approve the utility easement for Evergy Metro Incorporated for the Educational Support Center and the Spring Hill District Administrative Center.
This is Ally, I second.
It's moved and seconded to approve the utility easement for Evergy Metro to support utilities to the Education Support Center and Spring Hill District Administrative Center. Final questions or input? Candy, please collect the vote.
We'll start the vote with Mr. Updike.
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Mrs. Sealing.
Yes.
Mr. Boyle.
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman.
Yes.
Mr. Winbolt.
Yes.
Approved.
Very good. Thank you. Let's move on to discussion items. And our first discussion item is the accreditation process. Dr. Burke.
Yeah, Dr. Brock has done an incredible amount of work and a good job of the accreditation process. And we're going to turn it over to you,
All right.
Dr. Brock.
Here we go. I have some more accolades to share from our outside visiting team that came in. Our accreditation system, the short term for it is KESA, which stands for Kansas Education Systems Accreditation. That's the shorthand for it. But our accreditation process is a 5-year process. We are right in the middle of it right now. We just completed year 3. Every year we have to have a visit from what is called our outside visiting team. And we had that on April 29th. We did it virtually, which was a little different, but it worked very well. Our team is comprised of Joy Engel, and she is assistant superintendent in the Turner District. Sherry Reeves, who is assistant superintendent in Basehor-Linwood, and Dr. Ruth Wagner, who was a principal in Olathe when she first joined our team, and she's since retired, but she's professor at Mid-America now. So that is our team. And the way it works is there's quite a lengthy document that we have to fill out online that kind of summarizes everything we've done through the year. I fill that out, I share that with the team, and they go through it before they come. We have focused, you have to have 2 goals, and it's been the same all the way through this 5-year process. And our 2 goals are to develop a tiered system of support for all students and to implement a social emotional curriculum and to establish care teams. So those are our 2 goals, and we're working on them all the way through, and we have 5 years to meet them and to get them put into place. So what they said was, this is a quote, Spring Hill is to be commended on the many initiatives and activities planned to meet the goals in their areas. Much has been accomplished this year, especially in light of the early school closures. Continue all the great work you are doing to meet the needs of all stakeholders in your district. Somebody else wrote, the Spring Hill School District has all the necessary policies and procedures in place to sustain an effective improvement process. The district is only finishing year 3. However, I have no doubt with the structures in place, they are fully prepared for year 4 and their final year in the cycle. So basically what they were doing was just checking in with us, making sure we're on track, that we're going to be ready and done within our 5-year cycle. And they feel like we are exactly on target for where we need to be to meet those 2 goals. So, any questions on that little visit we had?
Karen, this is Nels Anderson. What were the 2, you said there were 2 goals, that social emotional learning was the second one. What was the first one?
To develop a tiered system of supports for all students, which is a foundational piece that we need to make sure is done well. And so we're focusing on that in our 5-year cycle.
And this is for accreditation?
Yes. To be accredited, you have to pick your 2 goals, and the team comes in and makes sure you get them accomplished and done well. And you have foundational things that you have to have in place, and you have certain, what's the other word I'm thinking of? Not foundational. You have to follow all the rules and regs from the state, and that's not a problem. We do all of that. So all these areas have to be checked off by the outside visiting team that you're making progress on your goals, and that you have everything in place to do that.
One of the things that's a little bit different through this cycle is in the past, you could have all of your schools individually become accredited, and then the district as a whole would be accredited. Now it's all or nothing. So either the whole district's accredited or you're not. And so we worked hand in hand with all of our school district schools and with Insight to make sure that we're making progress to those foundational items that Karen was talking about. We have to be making progress in all those requirements from the state as well.
Anything else? So we're right where we need to be. It's basically what it amounts to, and they say we're doing a good job.
Did they identify any opportunities for improvement or actions we need to take? I mean, I guess I don't have a sense as to, I guess they say we're on track, right, for accreditation.
Yeah,
and that's
we're on
the
track.
key.
Everything is going fine, and they had no questions. Mostly they had compliments. Most of what they wrote up was all compliments, and they couldn't believe how hardworking our people are, especially in the light of what's going on right now and what people are still able to accomplish with everything else that's been thrown at us. That's what they were mostly amazed with, what a great group of people we have working for us.
Yeah, Doug, to answer that a little bit more specifically, there is a few things. You know, they want our graduation rate to go up. They would like to see our success after graduation rate go up. But as long as we're making improvement in those areas, they're very happy and satisfied right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't anticipate or don't see any large challenges or issues or potential risks for not receiving an accreditation.
Not at this point, not based on our goals, not at all.
Okay, great. Sounds like good news.
Yeah, it was a very good visit.
It was a good visit.
Any other questions or discussion on the accreditation process or the results so far? Okay, let's move on to our second discussion item, which is textbook adoption. Dr. Burke?
Yeah, I'm going to turn this right back over to Dr. Brock. She's up again.
Still me. This year, we'd kind of been planning for a while. We knew we were going to have to do a big adoption. The last couple years have not been as big as this one because we did not have a 612 adoption going. So the time has come back around again for our ELA adoption and high school math. So it is a bigger price tag this time because those are bigger. The online subscription for the other ones ran out. They were a 6-year subscription and those are gone now. So it's time to either renew those or look at more materials. And it's more cost effective actually to look at new materials. So the teachers, the 612 ELA and the high school math teachers spent the year reviewing several different publishers, going through a rubric, taking a look at them. We brought vendors in to present to them. Actually, we ended up having to do that virtually. The very first day that we were in lockdown is when we had that scheduled. So that was a learning experience for everybody. And these are the books that they have recommended that they would like to have. In the math one, the Into AGA, it's Into Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry. That book, the Algebra 1, would be the same at the middle and the high. So they'd be the same book no matter where they took it. What they liked about that one is the book is based on a growth mindset in math. The idea that it's problem-solving applications At the beginning of the unit, when you open it up and look at it, they actually have a problem for the students to solve. And one that I looked at was some issue with stacking pop cans and I don't know, the physics of it and all sorts of things. It's very visual, and it is much more, like I said, a growth mindset. It takes the kids from a concept. I'm going to make sure I say this correctly. I wrote it down. It's conceptual to conceptual and procedural, and then to procedural. They're applying what they're learning. It's much more of an application than they've had in the past, where it may have just been straight math solving. They're really, really working on the math conceptions for the students here and how they can apply. It puts careers in it. It's a whole different look at it, and the teachers thought that was really a good way to go. As far as the literature, and this is coming from me being a recovering literature teacher, the books now in literature are consumables. They are getting away from doing the great big hardbound anthologies, and that was really weird for me to start looking at. But their idea behind it is, one, they want to go a bit greener, because the consumable books are made from recycled materials, and they too can be recycled. A lot of the big textbooks, it's hard to recycle them, and when you're done with them, it's hard to do something with them. So try and go a little bit greener. But these consumables are designed so the students are really, really interacting with the text. They're meant for them to mark, they're meant for them to make comments, they're meant for them to interact with the literature, which is something, looking back as a teacher, would have been really great, because if you think back to a college textbook, you bought it and you wrote it as you were talking, and you were highlighting, you were annotating, making your notes as you read something. That's something that our students really haven't been able to do with the traditional hardbound book. So with that in mind, they've changed that. And both companies, middle and high, chose two different publishers, because the middle school felt like what they liked, the one that was Study Sync, really addressed some things for middle school students. The high school teachers thought the kids would think it was too young for them. Middle school thought this is perfect. It starts out every day with a video blast. Both of these really depend on the use of technology and using what's available to our students with their MacBooks much more than the other books ever did. There's a lot of interplay with it. There's a lot of videos built in, a lot of things they can go back and watch again. It flips a lot of things for them, and it's all just built in. So they both picked different publishers, but they agreed that's not a problem between them. If there's a story that shows up that in both publishers, they will work it out who gets to assign it. It's not that big of a deal. Another thing they really liked on Study Sync is that there's a library of like 2,100 additional pieces of literature online available to students beyond what's just in the consumable book. So they can find things differentiated for reading levels, for reading interests. They can find things at different differentiated levels. It's just very, very flexible, and they're very, very excited about it. So that's kind of a really quick tour there. But they spent a lot of time looking at these, and we're very, very excited about the changes they can start to see and what they can do differently as they move forward with these books. Intro to Health is for a pathway, as is the business communications, where to write it down. The health pathway, obviously, and business communications is for marketing. It's just a single classroom set of books. I will say on high school literature, before I forget, this is looking at the consumables for grades 9 and 10 for every student, and the digital. As with the math, they would have a hardbound book and digital classroom set of hardbound. Because the high school junior and senior courses have gone to semester courses and a lot of different topics, we've approved those new courses. They are requesting that we just have 2 sets of the junior books, because they're only taking a semester course, so we do not need to buy as many. So that's a savings in the long run. And then seniors, they said they don't need to use these because they have so many books there already for the senior courses. So we're saving a little bit of money there by just doing this primarily for freshmen and sophomores. That was quick and fast. What questions do you have?
What is it? I'm not sure I'm clear on the concept behind this consumable.
And they're all at the building, and I would have brought one here. The consumable, they put them in a unit. And so all the pieces of literature, the short stories, the poems, the things like that are printed in that book. Novels are not, but they are in there because you can write on them. You can interplay with them. So if I'm talking to the class and I say, okay, I want you to go in and find all of the imagery in this poem, instead of me just talking about it and they're just looking at the page, they are literally going in on their book and they are highlighting the imagery because they can actually mark in their book, which does make a big difference when you're interacting with a text. And when you're close reading and you can go in and annotate, and if I tell you to go find these vocabulary words or whatever, you actually can go into your book and do it. And it's not just seeing it on a page and you can't touch it because you know it's a textbook, but I can have them actually literally physically interact with what they are reading. And that's a reading skill, especially if you're doing close reading, to go in and interact with a text.
I'm sorry, Phil Elliott, we have somebody in the waiting room. So go ahead, I apologize.
So is that book then just done, or is it?
It's for the student, and they just replace them every year. So instead of the cost of buying the hardback books, this is an automatic renewal that will come every year, and you will just get that many of the consumable books.
Are they kind of the large paper or softbound type
They're
book?
softbound, and they're broken into there's 6 units for every grade level, and they're broken into 6 smaller ones. So you got a unit at a time. So they're not carrying a great big, 3-inch thing that they'll lose. It's 1 unit at a time. But
As the students take them, we have to continue to purchase the consumables each year, or is that included?
That's included. It's included. It's a 6-year. They just will automatically come. We tell them how many we need, and they'll just come.
That's good.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's just like if you bought the text, the hardbound. They'll just, instead of that, they just send them every year.
So this, the money for this comes from the fees that people pay every year. The, I guess materials fees or whatever. Is that correct?
Yes. Doug, am I wrong? It's part of that.
It covers part of it. We spend more money on textbooks than we gain in fees.
Yeah. Any other questions? I'm excited about the lit ones. I was a little thrown at first when I saw consumables, but the more I and I literally have to stop looking at them sometimes because I kind of get into my little happy place there with the lit books, but I can see where they would be really great to use.
So all these attachments kind of help us to go in and look at the actual books.
And I tried to put, if you follow them and go 1, 2, 3, I tried to write in there exactly what you need to put in each of the blocks to get in, but it'll take you right in to take a look at them.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions about these new textbooks? And the Sunday, that's
oh, I'm sorry. I got all your faces on here. I forgot about that. Sorry. There, yeah, I didn't even say Sunday. Sunday, we are looking at for Tier 1 instruction at the elementary level. A lot of students may be struggling with phonics and phonemic awareness, and some things they aren't maybe necessarily getting it in kindergarten, first, second. Sunday Essentials, we are asking to put that into every K through 5 classroom. Each teacher would get a kit. It's about a 10 to 15 minute lesson each day that makes sure that they are covering phonics and basic reading skills that our big anthology may not be covering as thoroughly, that some kids need a bigger dose of it. And it has been piloted in one building this year to, from what I understand, pretty great success. And we feel it is a very needed addition for our tier 1 instruction for reading. And so, yeah, sorry, I had your face on the screen. I didn't see that one under there. But yeah, we are really looking to it to really shore up the tier 1 and to increase the reading scores.
So Dr. Brock, so I'm familiar with Sunday with this dyslexia program. Is it a different program, or is this the same? I know the
same company. Okay. Yes, it's the same company, but it's Essentials. Sunday Essentials. I'm trying to say it. The specialized instruction Sunday that we have right now is a little bit different. That is much more specialized for dyslexia. Sunday Essentials is reading instruction for everybody. It's not as specialized.
So will this help to identify potential dyslexia issues?
This is not necessarily an identification. This is not a screener. This is used for core instruction for everybody.
So I was kind of thinking, though, if we were using this, maybe it wouldn't be used for an indicator, but could potentially bring awareness. Possibly, yeah. Is that one of the goals of this program?
Yes, and it's both. They're both systematic. They're both based on phonics, but this one is good instruction for everybody. Okay. Systematic instruction on phonics. And a lot of teachers, when you get to the upper grades, they're saying, we are not phonics teachers. We're in 5th grade. We haven't taught phonics for a long time. This is something we can put in their hands to help with that.
Okay. And this is the program that we piloted in one of our schools that's been successful.
Yes.
If I would love to someday, not right now, but I'd love to see some data on that too from that school and just their feedback if possible.
Reaction on it.
Any other questions or discussion?
I just had one thing on all of these links in the future. Is there any possible way that it could be simpler? Some of these, it takes an act of Congress to get into. So
I know, and that's why I really tried to write them and fill in the blanks to put that in there, because they're very convoluted. I totally agree. And when you look at the passwords with like an E exclamation 1, they are not easy. I totally get it. I've tried to figure out every which way to make it as simple as I can. That's how they hand them to us to try to figure out. That's why I try to do screenshots of them.
And the intro to health is intro to health care, right? Not, from what I'm looking at, not just our health class, but intro to health care.
Yes, the healthways pathway, yes.
You would think if they're trying to sell us books, they would make them easier to look at.
I totally agree. Everyone is different. Everyone has its own little way to go. But yeah, that intro to Ed 1 is very convoluted to try to get in. I totally feel you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Brock. Moving on to bond construction update, Dr. Burke.
Yeah, Tim Meek is our Director of Construction and Safety, so I'll turn it over to Tim.
All right, here we go. Hopefully I've got it up and you guys can see my screen here. Maybe 3rd time's the charm of me doing this.
Yeah, we can see it.
All right, good. Bond 2016 update. The 2016 bond summary there, you'll see the one yellow box there that's highlighted because last month I told you we'll be putting all of the contingencies left over from Woodland Springs and Early Childhood Center into that. And that update there gives you the final total and the contingency balance of right now of $2,680,000. And that's kind of where we sit right now. on the 2016. Obviously, we've got some land and stuff that'll be coming out of that, most likely. So we'll move on to 2018. The bond budget summary, really no real changes in that at all at this point. Still containing a current contingency of $2,003,942. Education Support Center. Construction began back in the summer of 2019. Schedule opening fall of 2020. We're actually hoping to be in it. It'll be shortly after our next meeting, but sometime in June, we'll start the process of moving in there. So next milestone is the final TCO inspection by the Kansas State Fire Marshal and then the City of Spring Hill as well. Complete the ceiling grids, drywall, painting, had our pre-install on the carpet, flooring today, and so we'll hopefully get that going. Most of the site has been graded for paving. We were hoping to do that towards the end of this week, but the weather doesn't look like it's going to help us on paving this week. So we'll, as soon as we can, we'll start that. Challenges and successes: installation of curbs around there went real well. They're all done. Oliver Electrics stepped up, had some guys working Saturdays and stuff to get them back on track and ahead so that everything's ready as ceiling grid goes in. They're getting fixtures in and everything else. Bids, the furniture and equipment, we appreciate your approval last month on that. I will say on equipment, the one thing I told you I'd be bringing back to you later will be the racking, the pallet racking for the warehouse. We're just finalizing the layout of the warehouse. Hopefully I don't have to bring it back to you, because hopefully we get it under my bid limit to where I'm not going to be required to get it back if we can take advantage of some used pallet racking and some other stuff like that. But we just today basically finalized the layout of the warehouse, and so now we'll get to going on final pricing of the racking. On-site screening for COVID-19 symptoms has been a success. The workers have appreciated it. I think we're keeping everybody nice and healthy there. We'll tell you that as of right now, we're planning on June 12th. Will probably be our last day unless some things change and we need to go back to doing it. We are going to keep a little portable office on site for now, because it actually costs us more to have it come and picked up and then to be redelivered than it will to keep it for a couple of months. So for right now, we're just going to hold it until we see what happens with that. So we're going to keep it there. The one challenge we've had has been JR & Company. They are our metal building company. They have just been struggling to finish up all the little loose ends on the outside to finish. They had some metal panels that were ordered the wrong length, a half a foot short. So it took them a while to get those in. They finally got them in. We've got them installed, and we were able to put the rest of our windows in, but it was holding up some stuff on the east side of the building. Most people don't see that side, but it's where all of our offices are from the technology maintenance offices. And so we were unable to get all the finishing done in there. So they've kind of held things up, but we're able to move on most of that right now. So it's good. Safety report: 0 accidents, no lost time accidents for 207 days as of 5/1. So just some pictures there of the warehouse. It's pretty bold right now in this picture. As of today, they're already painting some of it, so it doesn't look quite. The blue's being covered up with some nice off-white paint, so it doesn't look quite as bold in there. The technology room, the server room area there, on that one. Loading dock with the sealer. The kitchen, the epoxy floors are in. Kitchen equipment will be coming in next week. Curb installations we talked about is done at that building, all but about a 20-foot piece where we've got to cut through for a driveway right now. And when we get this done, then we'll be putting that in and changing some things over. Exterior view, that's the east side, the side that we were, the lighter gray or the panels that you see there are the ones that were 6 inches too short that we got in and was holding up all the windows there. Moving on to Dayton Creek, schedule, construction began in fall of 2019. It'll be ready to open in the fall of 2021 for that school year 2021. Next milestone will be complete slab on grade. There's 4 little areas we left out for the masons to travel on, so we didn't have to have them travel on the slab on grade as access inner walls. So as soon as they get done with their topping out some of the tall walls in the center part of it there, then we'll pour those in. We'll continue the structural steel. We've got steel up in the gym area and the center area of the building, the library, and the specials room down through there. Challenges and successes, coordinating the sequencing among the trade partners. Everybody's been really playing well in the sandbox, for lack of a better word. Everybody has just followed each other up. Everybody's working, they're talking, communicating. You know, I credit a lot of that to the on-site construction manager too, how he's working with them. But it's nice when the contractors are all working together and not pointing fingers at each other on it. Again, the on-site screening has gone real well. We plan to discontinue it, hopefully on June 12th as well, will be the last day. One of the challenges has been the benefit district site improvements, the roads and stormwater and stuff for all the roads and everything around it. It's been a little slow getting out of the gate, so we're doing a lot of coordination. We've already had a coordination meeting with the contractor that's been selected to do that, and so we're coordinating to make sure that there's nothing changed from their part, which so far hasn't. Also exactly what dates are going to be there so we can make sure we get utilities in and everything else in a timely manner for when we need them. So safety report, no accidents, no lost time accidents, and that's been for 112 days as of 5/1/20.
Tim, before we leave Dayton Creek, I saw you mentioned the challenge on the benefit district. Did we get all that worked out with the city and everything finally?
Yeah, they vote. I mean, they've moved on and they've got their contractor selected and everything. Really, it's really a matter that they were slow getting it out, and so their contractors behind where we had hoped they would be. They're a couple of months behind where we had hoped they would be. So the coordination just needs to happen. And again, they've been very open, and we've had a couple of meetings with the city's contractor and Dr. Vince's contractor on this project. So
thank you.
Does that potentially impact the schedule?
If something would happen, we don't get utilities in there, it could, because we may not be able to move on to maybe some finishes and stuff like that we'd like to start if we don't have aren't able to do all the heat and stuff like that. We're building a lot of contingency plans in. So when I say coordination, Jay Dunn and the district are working hard to make sure that we can continue to go on. If the natural gas hasn't gotten there, we've already got some plans for some electrical heat to do some of it, or bring some propane in if we need to supplement some of that. But gas is always one of the very last things to come into the buildings or into the development. They want to be last so nobody hits them. Stormwater will be one of the first ones to go in. Stormwater drains well even before the road, so that shouldn't be a worry. Most of the other utilities, electrical, will come in pretty much as soon as the roads are getting graded as well. So, and we've got enough power there to bring the building on temporary electrical right now anyway. So we're good on that. So you can see a couple of aerial site views, back from February until today. Actually, not even quite today. It's progresses. It's amazing when you just see a week difference on some of this, on how much it progresses. So the area to the bottom left on the 5.5 is the gym, and then you can see the wedge. You can actually, if you look, you'll see another picture in a minute. It'll show you some more of the steel going up in the center library and specials area. Outer walls are going up and around the whole perimeter. So that picture there shows the gym, a little bit better view from that's 5.5 to 331 there. You can see a lot of difference in those pictures. Appreciate Kylie Delphia going out and flying the drones, so we get these nice shots. He tries to take one from about the same perspective every time, so it's good to see that perspective for us. So another view of the site there. So. Middle school number 3. Not a lot of difference on this as well. We're still working on the land purchase there, and we'll talk to you a little bit more about that. No real developments on any of the other things other than the land purchase, which we'll talk later. Other construction projects. Spring Hill District Administrative Center. Again, scheduled for to be open on spring of 2021. The next milestones, we had to do this before we last Wednesday or afternoon to Thursday morning had to have it to Candy. So on Thursday, I believe it was, or Friday, the slab on grade was poured. So that's not actually a milestone. It's one that's been met already. Hopefully by the end of the week, if the weather allows, we'll begin having the steel be set for the first floor. Challenges and successes there. Again, the on-site screening jumping down there for the COVID's been good. Lithco, the concrete people, have been moving right along. And a little bit of a challenge has been River Oak. They are plumbers for the Education Support Center and District Admin Center. You'd think that would be really good, but they're both at a point where they were requiring a lot of people. The finishes going in and stuff like that at the Education Support Center and the sub-slab plumbing for the Admin Center, they were running a little bit behind. They did step up just before the slab was poured and got everything done, and so no real problems with them being behind, but just a challenge to make sure they got the people there. Safety report, again, no accidents, no lost time accidents for 60 days as a 5-1. Looks different today again because of that's from 5.5, and as today you've got a full slab there. It was pouring, other than the raised board area is the only one that's up in the top left-hand corner is where the board will set in that new building, and it's the only part of the slab that's not poured. And that's it. If there's any questions.
I would, if nobody has any question, I just would like to commend the closeout on the 2016 bond, the excellent safety record, on time, and we're able to protect all the contingency, or almost all the contingency, and that's just quite a testament to our own management staff and J.E. Dunn. It's just turned out to be a really good project.
It's really fun to go. I mean, I guess maybe fun's not a right word, but to be in our meetings are every 2 weeks or every week, depending on which project it is. And the first thing that's hit in every one of them is safety. And every day there's their JSAs, their job safety reports that have to be turned in. Every one of the contractors is filling a form out saying what they talk to their people about every single day to start the job. Not only that, but I also throw you guys under the bus as well when I talk to them about it in every one of our meetings and say, my board is very concerned about safety on these jobs as well. It's one of the things that I present to them as well. So thanks for letting me throw you under the bus and adding a little bit of a level of safety and letting them know there's not just there's people on the outside looking too. So
yep, and just a lot of jobs overrun, and being able to bring a job in on budget and even saving almost all the contingency that we can use on other maintenance items and other things is just a really well run project.
It creates a lot of value. Creates value for all the stakeholders in the project too. I mean, it's important that we're actually getting more value out of that bond issue than we had originally anticipated. When it's managed well, run well, you don't have safety issues, you don't have schedule delays, and you run everything on time, it creates a very positive effect.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to bring a project in well for our patrons that are paying for it.
Absolutely. Any other questions for Tim? Do they have a running total? Does Dunn keep a running total of hours combined by combined all projects for
last
hours?
month? I think was it last month I gave you those figures?
I thought it was. I think
Yeah.
it was.
They don't keep it as
several
such. They had to put that together for me. I mean, it wasn't too hard for them to do because they've got their daily men that were on jobs and stuff like that. And so they don't aggregate all the jobs together like that normally. But it's not anything that's hard for them to put together normally either.
Yeah, I think they're going to focus on individual projects. So I think just when I think that's a good thing to let the community know about is that we've completed and finished this 2016 bond issue, and really due to the district's your and Phil efforts, and going through a systematic process to identify your construction manager really provides value back. This is why you take the energy and time and energy to do that. And having that total hours worked and zero accidents or zero lost time accidents is a nice metric to.
I was trying to pull up my last month. It's taking me longer. I was trying to remember what
it was several 100,000 hours. I remember
what the number was. It kind of, when you actually see it in hours, it kind of blows you away at how many hours it really is that's put in there without.
Right.
Here we go. 300 on the J.E. Dunn side as well for the 2016 bond, 385,060 hours. So
and zero lost time. One lost time accident.
There was one recordable injury. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but even then, the total recordable incident ratio of 0.52 is not as good as a zero, but it's extremely low. So
zero is the goal. Industry standard is 1, so we're half the industry standard.
Yeah, especially on commercial type projects, usually higher than that.
And it's been interesting. I don't want to say anything. There's a project going on here in Spring Hill, and I went to a local store which has a construction site next to it, and seeing those guys out there on a small crew, nobody with a hard hat, 1 or 2 guys have safety vests on. There's definitely a difference in what we're getting out of our guys when they come on site. I feel much better about how they're going to go home to their family. So.
Absolutely.
Yep, and that's what
Good
it's
deal.
about. Thank you, Tim. Any other questions for Tim? Okay, let's move on to items for from Board of Education members for future meetings. Any additions?
I'm not sure if this is the place, so you can correct me if I'm not in the right place. I think that we should talk about our live streaming of board meetings going forward, following when we can be in one place again. I think a lot of people have gotten used to that now and appreciate that they can watch board meetings and be involved from home.
Be a good
That was going to be just one of a question that I had was if we're going to resume, not resume, but resume meetings in person with, you know, if we were able to spread out, or if we're going to continue doing this kind of format.
My answer right now would be that we would go ahead and continue this format until we feel like that we could, because the problem is if we move back to Hilltop, then until we get the go ahead from the state, then we're going to have to limit how many can come in there. And so, you know, you look at that space, we could do social distancing, but just right now, you look on this chat, we've got 33 participants. So that's 33 of our people that would be there without any guest. So until we could get the go ahead from the county that we could do that, we would go ahead and continue to do this. Unless you want to limit participants, then that's something that we can certainly talk about.
Well, if all goes well, according to the county, in phase 3, we would be at 90 people. We could have up to 90, so that's in about 5 weeks, I believe. But I know lots can change. It changes every day.
Well, I just have a question on the fact that Hilltop's a school building, technically, and the state of Kansas has said that you can't open school buildings indefinitely. So, I mean, I think we have to continue doing this way until the state of Kansas tells us differently on school buildings.
Well, Jason, I'll do a little bit of checking on that because there's something I'm going to talk to you guys later about, because YCare can come in as a I'm trying to figure out the proper terminology, but they are a licensed daycare camp, and they can come in as soon as we allow them to.
Right.
And that would be in a school building. So there is some flexibility on that. But I can make some calls. Matter of fact, we have a call tomorrow with Johnson County Emergency Management. I'll bring that up tomorrow.
I'm just hoping that maybe we can also create a plan going forward as well, even after this virus is over.
Yeah, we can tell you that we definitely, with the new administrative districts center, we already have that set up to be wired so that we can do live streaming. We kind of figured that the board would want to do this. The question between now and then is trying to purchase the equipment and get it set up in Hilltop until that can happen.
Okay, thank you.
I don't really have a problem with it one way or the other. I just think there's certain things that are easier for a board to communicate. I mean, the communication is just easier when everybody's in the same room. This is, I mean, gosh, what a great opportunity we have to be able to at least carry on. So I don't think it's horrible or anything, but it's not as good as being all together in the same room. So. The one thing that I would like to add to the list, or to at least have it on the list to kick around, is I know, gosh, how many years, it's probably been 6 years ago or something, when we started offering some AP classes that we, I just assumed at that point that we would do weighted grading, and my assumption was very wrong. So, but we haven't really had any discussions about that, or even, and we've added a lot more classes in the College Now opportunities seem to be bigger. So I don't know whether that's something that we could, maybe nobody else really wants to talk about as a board, or maybe it's not a board thing to talk about, but I'd at least like to hear some more information on kind of the philosophies behind doing that or not doing it, and then what other things you have to consider. Because I know pretty much all the school districts around us do that. And I hear parents talk about, the parents, of course, that I've heard talk about, I think it's better to have the weighted grading. And so I would love to hear the differences and stuff. We've had discussions with, our kids at home about, the ones that are out of high school now, the ones in high school now. And so maybe more of a curiosity on the part of a board perspective of it. So
we can certainly talk about that, Sharon. The one thing I want to remind the board is 2 years ago, you put in a new program for the valedictorian, and we started that with the freshmen. So you're just finishing up the sophomore year. That program has not even had a chance to go through one cycle yet. But if the board wants to look at changing it before we get to that cycle, I'm fine with that.
So, and the valedictorian thing just kind of sparked my memory about the whole weighted grading and stuff. So it does relate, but the discussion that I was kind of interested in having was more about the weighted grading and that side of it. So.
Yeah, and I'd like to see that, or have that discussion, including our honors classes. We have honors English, honors chemistry, and it really is more difficult. I've seen my daughter go through it, but there wasn't that much grade-wise. I mean, she could have just taken the regular chemistry class and possibly gotten a better grade, and it wouldn't have affected her GPA. So honors versus not honors, at this point, I'm telling my kids don't do it just because of the difficulty in grade point average. I mean, if it's weighted, then sure, absolutely. That's just my perspective.
I agree with both of you. I don't know a lot about it either, especially because I haven't been all the way through high school with my kids yet. But I am very curious. I'm sure our counselors probably have had some insight on this as well. I'd love to hear some input.
So are you wanting to bring this back in June, or do you want to wait till the fall when everybody's back?
When does it fall, or when does it need to be decided or need to be looked at as far as calendar and schedules?
It depends on what you're talking about, because you really can't change weighted grades without changing valedictorian. And so, like I said, you just put something in 2 years ago for this year's sophomore class. So if you're changing it, you probably need to do it sooner, because it's going to affect them.
So, and that's what caught my attention when I was looking through the handbook 2 weeks ago, was the ACT score. And realizing I wasn't on the board 2 years ago, but the ACT score, and I know a lot of colleges, some colleges are getting away from that too. So maybe the weighted grades would be something to look further into. And so I would say probably in June, so that if we needed to take effect before a new school year.
Dr. Burke, may I ask for some clarification on that question?
Right. Well, this is supposed to just be a bring it up, and then we'll bring it up to have so you guys will need to bring it up next meeting, and you're going to need to clarify to us all the questions you have. We're not doing that right now. We're not even taking notes. So at the next meeting, bring all the questions.
I think that'd be fine to bring it up at the next meeting and then kick around kind of what questions people have, or if anybody wants to go any further with it, like
Right.
with other things, and then we can figure out when would be a good time to talk about it. I mean, I think to me, it seems like it would be too late to change anything for the fall. I mean, you guys have a lot of uncertainties that you're dealing with right now. To throw one more thing in there.
Yeah. Plus, we just approved the handbook, so
Right, and that's why I went ahead and moved to approve the handbooks, because I think it's too late in the game to try and do that.
Yeah. I think this could be over the year discussion of how we want to do it for moving forward in the 21-22 school year.
Right. I guess what I was saying is, right now, when this is brought up at this point, then a board member does the presentation, and then that gives us chance to answer questions and provide some, and then we will come back and provide feedback. You know, right now, we're just kind of getting from, I think 3 or 4 different board members have questions. So what we'll do is go ahead in the meeting in June, first meeting in June, we will put this on the agenda and we will have, you can bring whatever questions that you have. I'll make sure the high school administration is here taking notes, and then they can start bringing back some answers to your questions after that meeting.
That sounds great.
Yep.
Any other additions to this list? Okay, moving on to board work calendar. I think we're on target with Dr. Burke.
Yeah, I believe that we are on target. This is being the only meeting that we have in May. And I think we've already done the calendar. You just had the review. The Keisha was the accreditation. Review the current year. I think that's something we probably ought to wait till the current year is completely over before we bring that out. Everything else, I believe that we are right on board to where we should be.
The property insurance and workers' comp will be next month.
On the property and casualty and work comp, are we, I know we don't really do a bid, but are we looking at all of our vendors, or are we just gonna wait till next year to look at people?
We will look at all the vendors. I know that one of the vendors that you were wanting us to consider was the Kansas Association of School Boards, and I believe that the vendor that they would be working through would be a vendor that we used to work with before. But we'll certainly visit with them again. Our experiences wasn't that good with them, but we will certainly visit with them again and see what kind of thoughts that they have.
Yeah, it's completely different than what we did before. It's actually
it's the same company.
It's the same insurance company, but it's a different agency. So it's through the risk management agency with KASB. So, and the structure of the insurance is completely different. It's actually pretty fascinating once Rod Spengler talked to you about it.
We will certainly visit with Mr. Spengler and the representatives that's already contacted us from that company.
Had one thing on the calendar. We don't actually review the health insurance for the employees. Is that the reason that's not on the calendar?
I don't know that it's ever been on there. It's a benefit. We've always made sure that our employees get a full single health plan, and then they have multiple options that go with that plan. They can do the high deductible, or they can have a full PPO.
Right, but the reason I'm asking is it's becoming one of our largest expenses. So I thought it might be something that if the rest of the board's interested in looking at.
We'd have to look at that, in October or November, because the plan has to start on Jan 1. Is that correct?
Yes.
We typically look at that when we're looking at the contract as well, right?
That's correct.
Any other comments on the board work calendar? Okay, moving on to committee reports.
I attended virtually the Wolf Creek Elementary School Site Council, and thought it was very informative, the things that they're doing, and they're talking about getting all the materials that the kids have brought at the beginning of the year and throughout the year back to them, and the plan for doing that. And just hearing from some of the teachers and the interactions they've had with students throughout this whole thing, it was just, to me, it was very inspirational to hear just kind of how the whole building and how Mrs. Cooper has really led them with her team through just a really hard time for students and teachers and parents. And also kind of what I sensed is that this is kind of starting to wear on people, especially teachers, when they start thinking about the end of the year, and just kind of want to be mindful of that this is hard for everybody. And we've been kind of focused on how hard it is for families, but it's really hard for the teachers too. So.
Well, I think it's a really good point, Sharon, is because people now they have to be, teachers in their home. They have to still be teaching in their home. They probably have their own kids they have to teach. There's a lot of fatigue that really gets pulled into this thing when you're at home, because all of the roles, all the different roles that we typically play in our lives are all concentrated in exactly the same location all day long every day. And so days don't start and end the way they used to. And I think there's just a certain amount of fatigue that goes into that. We're in what, week 8 or 9, right? That's a significant amount of time.
And if I can just add, this is Mrs. Cooper. I thanked my teachers who attended that meeting via email, and they responded that they had that same insight the other way too. It really was an opportunity for them. I don't know if we were all just feeling a little raw, but there was a lot of emotional sharing at that meeting, and it was really good for the teachers to also just get a real authentic feeling for how the parents were doing too. So it was a good meeting, and thank you for your kind words, Mrs. Mitchell.
Any other committee meetings?
Yeah, this is Nels Anderson. I attended the Insight Site Council this afternoon for elementary and middle school, and there are few developments. They are going to a new platform next year called Nero. It's similar to Zoom, and they've been using virtual Blackboard, I think, so they're switching that. They've had a good growth in both math and reading at multiple grade levels. It's double-digit growth in performance and percentile growth, and then also good news on their retaining at both the elementary and middle, or have new enrollments and are retaining upwards of close to 90% of their students, and they're also adding students as well. So seem to be going well.
Good news. Thanks, Nels. Any other committee reports? Okay, moving on to the superintendent report, Dr. Burke.
We get to visit with some seniors today. It's always a pleasure to get to visit with those young people. You talk about a group that's had a really hard thing that's thrown at them. Think about your senior year, you go home for spring break, and then you basically don't get to go back. So what a phenomenal representative group. Always a pleasure to visit with them. This is finals week, and they are looking forward to being done. We still have graduation set up, I believe July 20, right off the top of my head, July 25th, whatever that Saturday at 10 a.m. Our plan is to be indoors. And if that doesn't work, our plan is to move outdoors. And if that doesn't work, then we're going to follow whatever the state and county health department will allow us to do. But we're really hoping, crossing our fingers, that we can have a graduation ceremony and at least give them some sort of normalcy that on their way out, even though it's much later than we normally like. One thing I should say, we are following the phases of the county reopening, phases 1, 2, 3, and 4. One of the things I can tell you is, in talking to the county, there have been some thoughts about what schools look like in the summer with practices and games, and we'll continue to work with that. I said games. We probably don't have any games in the summer, but practices and camps and what they will and will not allow us to do. There is one caveat on June 1st. We are going to have Y-Care come back in, and the county is very adamant that they want that there to be summer daycare. This is a licensed daycare camp, and the county really wants that back to give our parents an opportunity to go back to work and have somewhere for their child to go, along with the multiple daycares that we have into the community. And so they do have the caveat for them to come in is a little bit different than just the regular schools, and doesn't seem fair, but that is put in within the state and within the county. I know that Kylie is working with them on how we're going to make sure, and Brad Wilson as well has done a lot of work on how we will deep clean that, and they are minimizing how many kids that they can have in the building. So that is one thing that will be coming up pretty soon. The summer food, or I'm sorry, restate that. So the summer sports activities, again, lots of questions about camps and when things can happen. Again, we're going to have to rely upon the state and county as to when and what they will allow. Food service, I'm very, very proud of them. As of today, we've served over 63,000 meals since this thing started. It's amazing. They are going to go through May 22nd. And so on that Friday, which means there's actually no school, school's officially out, they will serve that day and make sure that the kids get a meal on Saturday as well. So very, very proud of all the work that they've done. Last of the packets will go out next Monday, and the incredible amount of work to Karen Brock, the teachers, the instructional coaches, and the principals. So a lot of work has gone into this. Probably not the way we would have liked to educate through the end of the year, but with the circumstances and the way it worked, I felt like we did the best job we could. So very, very proud of that effort, and we are already planning for 3 different contingencies for the beginning of the next year, whether we're completely open again, whether we're completely closed, or somewhere in between where the state comes in and says we can only have a certain amount of students in. So right now we're planning for those 3 contingencies. Not exactly sure which one happens. I think we're all hopeful that school will start as much back to normal as it can, that all students will be there, all staff will be there, and we'll do the best that we can when that happens. So looking forward to getting through these phases, and hopefully everybody is healthy and we're able to move forward.
Did we have a stop date on the lunches? I know you were looking at that, but did we have a decision on that?
We went ahead and we're going to do it on the 22nd of May. Okay. I talked to JC and she said there's a possibility of the waiver, but the question is what that's going to look like for our district, whether she can actually get food through, I can't think of who we use, Cisco, not Cisco, who we get our food supplies through, the staffing. And at that point, she just felt like with all those barriers that they've done such a job that they could, that they just need a break. And so at this point, we're going to stop on the 22nd.
Okay, is that it?
That's it.
Quick question, Dr. Burke, on the meals. We do not meet the 51% free and reduced meal requirement for what the state just put out this week. Is that correct?
We do not get so we don't need it for what?
Okay, so I got an email today about that the Department of Commerce is doing a meal program, but you have to have, I think you have to have 51% free and reduced meals to qualify for it.
We do not have 51%. There's a possibility that we could apply and get accepted for a waiver, but don't know exactly what all that would look like.
Okay. Well, I can talk to you about that later. Anyway, I'll send you the information I got.
Okay, moving on to, we do need an executive session. We have a couple of executive sessions lined up for this evening.
Yeah, any staff that do not need to be part of this, you're free to log off.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone. All right. Mr. President, this is Jason Wimbolt. I move that the board go into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel to protect the privacy interests of an identifiable individual under coma. Those to be in session include the Board of Education members, Superintendent of Schools, Assistant Superintendent of Schools, and administrators as requested. Who are we requesting? Anyone?
Yeah, we'll have just administrators as needed, but starting out, it would be Brad and I and Michelle. Supplemental will be Mark, Gary, Rod, and Trevor.
Okay. The executive session to begin. Do we need any time, any break time for anyone? I'm getting some.
I think, yeah, give us like
5 minutes.
5 minutes, yeah.
Executive session to start at 8:56 and return at this place no later than 9:30, 9:45. Any takers?
Let's try for 9:30 and see where we're at.
9:30, no later than 9:30.
Second, Sharon Mitchell.
Moved and seconded to move to executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel under coma. Candy, please collect the vote.
We'll begin the vote with Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Seeley,
Yes.
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Winbolt,
Yes.
Mr. Updike.
Yes.
Approved.
Very good. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you in the break room. extend for probably to no later than 10 p.m. So we do need do we have 4 board members out here?
Yeah.
I only see 2, but that's okay.
I see. It looks like everybody. Mr. President, I move the board extend or go no later than 10 o'clock for personnel matters of non-elected personnel.
This is Ally, second.
Moved and second to extend the executive session to no later than 10 p.m. Candy, please collect the vote.
Okay, Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Sealing,
Yes.
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Winbolt,
Yes.
Mr. Updike,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
approved. Bye.
I keep getting kicked out.
Thanks, Candy.
You're welcome. They're popping up.
All right. Do we have enough? There is 4. I move that we extend executive session for personnel to no later than 10:30.
This is Ally, second.
Moved and seconded to move executive session of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel to returning no later than 10:30. Candy, please collect the vote.
We'll start the voting with Mrs. Sealing,
Yes.
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Winbolt,
Yes.
Mr. Updike,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
approved.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the supplemental agreements as recommended by the superintendent.
Brent Hoffman, I second the motion.
Doug?
Doug, you're muted.
How's that?
There you go.
All right, moved and seconded to approve for approval of supplemental agreements. Candy, please collect the vote.
We'll begin with Mrs. Sealing,
Yes.
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Winbolt,
Yes.
Mr. Updike,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
approved.
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the new administrative contracts with Zach Harwood and Callie Weitzel, each being Zach being an assistant superintendent at Woodland Spring Middle School, and Callie Weitzel at an assistant principal at Spring Hill Middle School.
Zach would not be the assistant superintendent. Can we put him as?
Oh, sorry, assistant principal. He impressed me that much.
It's late at night.
Apparently, and I'm not drinking.
Do I have a second?
Second, this is Allie.
It's moved and seconded to approve the administrative positions as recommended by the superintendent. Kelly Weitzel to be assistant principal and activities director at
Not
Spring
the
Hill
only
Middle
one.
School, and Zach Harwood to be assistant principal and activities director at Woodland Spring Middle School. Candy, please collect the vote.
We'll start the vote with Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Winbolt,
Yes.
Mr. Updike,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Sealing,
Yes.
approved.
We do need another exec. Yeah, all right. Welcome. I don't know who else is listening, but welcome. Great discussions with two very positive candidates that we really feel are going to bring good things to our district. And so we appreciate the work, time, energy, and effort that administrators obviously put into these selections. We do have a second executive session that's necessary.
Yep. For those of you staying, Mr. President, I move that the board go into executive session to discuss potential properties for a new school site pursuant to the exception for preliminary discussion of the acquisition of real property under COMA. Those to be in session include Board of Education members, Superintendent of Schools, Assistant Superintendent of Schools. Phil, you joining us?
Yes. And Tim.
And Phil Elliott and Tim Meek. Start at 10:25 and go no later than 11 p.m.
Second, this is Allie.
Moved and seconded to move to executive session to discuss or to have preliminary discussions about the acquisition of real property under COMA. Candy, please collect the vote.
We'll begin with Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Winbolt,
Yes.
Mr. Updike,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Sealing,
Yes.
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
approved. at Amazon. And they have to have masks every day, all day long. And Amazon won't furnish them.
We're coming back, Candy.
Okay.
All right, our last action item of the day. Mr. President, I move that the board approve the extension of due diligence period to June 30th on the real estate contract as presented.
Second, Eric.
Moved and seconded to extend the due diligence period to June 30th on the real estate contract. Candy, please collect a vote.
We will start with Mr. Winbolt,
Yes.
Mr. Updike,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson, Mr. Anderson, Mrs. Sealing,
Yes. Sorry.
Mrs. Sealing,
Yes.
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman.
Yes.
Approved.
Very good. Final agenda item is for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
This is Ally, second.
Hey,
Candy, collect and vote.
we'll start with Mr. Updike,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Sealing,
Yes.
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Winbolt.
Yes.
We are done.
Very good. Thank you, everyone.